Hey, what's going on? It's Josh. This is my album of the year video, part of the Roguenjosh Music Awards for 2023. The ninth one of these that I've done. It's only the third since I've been doing like video kind of stuff. But I've got 30 albums. These are my 30 favorite albums from this year, which I have painstakingly ordered from 30 down to number one, my favorite album of the year. So we're going to start with number 30 in my album of the year countdown for 2023. Let's go. At number 30, Humanity's Last Breath and Ashen. I love what these guys are doing with this Thal sound, stepping up the production on this super heavy metalcore Djent metal. It's maybe a bit much. In some ways, I feel like it didn't even need to be a full album to get the gist because it's just so huge. The whole album's just so huge. It's in some ways hard to get through because it's just like relentless. But I think that it's an important album. I think it really shows what can be done in the scene with production. So yeah, number 30. And number 29, Baby Metal, the other one. I've never been the hugest Baby Metal fan, but I just thought this was such a solid metal album. They said that it was a concept album. I didn't really see that. I just thought that it was a front to back, solid as hell 10 tracks of modern metal. I really, really enjoyed it. I like it a lot more without the music videos because like the synchronized dancing and everything doesn't do it for me. One more time from Blink-182. I'm a Blink-182 fan back from Josie. I love him, and this was old style Blink. It was super nostalgic. I loved it. Also, for all of these albums, I have a full album reaction for each of these of the 30 on my Patreon, so head on over. There'll be a link down below if you want to see any of these full album reactions. All right, so that was number 28. And number 27, Tesseract War of Being. I'm not the biggest prog guy. I feel that this album has incredible... Production's amazing. They're so talented. I do love them as a band, but I just feel like me and prog don't fully get along. So the fact that it's on the list at all speaks volumes of how much I love some of the songs on this album. But there's only so many times I can hear slight variations on the same Djent. Number 26, Hail the Sun, Divine Inattention. I was expecting, it's like super swancore, very Circus Survive style, but really kind of chaotic. There's a lot of turmoil in this album. Quite the journey. I hate the album cover. I've got to put that out there, but a really cool album. The vocalist is wild. The guitarists are some of the best in swancore. Possibly one of the most disrespected albums on the list at number 25, Bury Tomorrow, The Seventh Son. This one was a really weird listen to me because I listened to it out of order initially over months of the year through requests on my request streams every week. And then I finally got through the whole thing and then listened through and loved it. But because of the way I had listened to it and then, like had heard some songs so many more times than others and then hearing them in order at the end, I still loved it. I wish I just sat down and listened through it. So this one isn't on my Patreon, actually. All of the others have full album reactions on the Patreon. This one, because of the way that I reacted to it, I haven't put one together for it. And number 24, Of Mice and Men and Tether, a huge directional change for Of Mice and Men, really getting out of that old school metalcore screamo lane and getting into more of an alternative metal prog kind of lane. I said it was a lot like a Perfect Circle kind of style, which I love. So I enjoyed it a lot. I do have a full album reaction for this on Patreon. I've been a fan of these guys for a long time, so I'm always happy when bands find new ways to make music together and move forwards with their sound. I think this is a really cool step for them. And number 23, where the hell did Johnny Booth come from? What is that band name? This is the album Moments Elsewhere. They're incredible. They're like super experimental, modern metalcore, hints of Incubus, real experimental stuff, crazy talented. I really enjoyed it. I had a lot of nostalgia for the old school kind of new metal-y stuff that I used to listen to. Massive surprise for me this year because I had never heard of them and I really hate the band name, but I loved this album. August Burns Red, Death Below, just solid modern metalcore. The most solid of modern metalcore. They've been doing it for a long time. It really shows. It's hard to fault. It's just a great, solid album. Hollow Front's album comes in at number 21. This is The Fury of Letting Go. They're mixing in a lot of electronic elements. I think they're just a two-piece now. You can really hear that, but the vocals are just so good. And it's a really dynamic, active, modern metal kind of band. Some of the songs, the mixing didn't quite hit, but I could tell the song was there. But overall, I really enjoy the album. So that's why it's at number 21. Let's move on to the top 20. Holding Absence come in at number 20. So we're in the top 20 now. The Noble Art of Self-Destruction. They're a sick rock band. Very emotional, very driven by the vocalist and lyrics. Really cool concept for the album. I think that this band in modern music is the most similar to my old band that I played in, Capulet. It really feels, when I'm listening to it, I really do feel a connection in that way because this is the kind of music that we used to write. So I love hearing that, to the highest of quality in a modern rock album. At number 20. Album number 19, Periphery V, the fifth album from Periphery. Djent is not a genre. The production quality of this album is wild. Super prog, but very experimental. Wildfire probably should have been on my Song of the Year list, actually. That's a miss on my part. I really love that song. Is what carried this whole album for me. The album is all very good. I love the jazz stuff that they throw in there. I love how different it is in that way. It's the most I think I've ever enjoyed prog. And that's because there's so much experimental to it. And the production is just the absolute peak of modern progressive metal. So sick. All right, Of Virtue and Omen. This is like a genre-defining album for modern metal. The production quality is incredible, but it is a seamless mix of electronic with metal, with R&B elements, dual vocals. It gets so heavy, it gets so smooth. It's consistent throughout. It's a really, really solid package. And it comes in for me, 18th favorite album of the year. Really cool band. At number 17, Veil of Maya. Mother. This album is sick. It is super modern, super experimental, so damn cool. Lucas is an incredible vocalist. Carrying on from the Of Virtue, it's another like genre-defining, experimental modern metal album. It gets so heavy. It's got a lot of really cool electronic elements. It's very dynamic. Great album, Mother, Veil of Maya at number 17. This may be my surprise of the year. There's two, but this is one of the surprises of the year. Conquer Divide and Slowburn. I'd already heard a couple tracks. I thought they were cool. I was introduced to them with their Electric Callboy song that they did. Their first kind of few songs on the album I thought were really good, but it's in the second half of the album towards the end, excluding track 8, which I actually don't like, but the rest of the album is so good that I let that slide. It just gets better and better as it goes. It's super epic, very nu metal, very industrial, very nostalgic, great vocalists, good singer-screamer combo, cool tone, very cool band. Conquer Divide, Slowburn at number 16. This one's an Adelaide band, Alt, their album Abeyance. Lucky enough to see these guys live this year. They're so sick. It's such a great album. Really cool, modern rock, grungy, bit of industrial, right up to the last track. The whole album is awesome. They've got a really artistic, artsy kind of indie-ish style. Great modern metal, modern hard rock. Check it out. Great album. At number 14, I didn't really know too much about this band, but they are just a combination of like all of my favorite bands. They're like Caskets, Rain City Drive, Dayseeker. They've got all of that style. Word Alive, solid as, great vocalist, great album. I didn't even know this had come out, but I found it. I listened to it. The full album reaction again is up on my Patreon. It immediately just jumped super high on my rankings. I couldn't believe how good it was from a band that I didn't really know that well. So this is number 14, Catch Your Breath. Shame on me for not listening to them sooner. At number 13, Windwalkers, What If I Break? Possibly one of the most well-rounded albums of the year. Amazing vocalists. Very post-hardcore rock, but not afraid to get filthy, heavy with big screams. Then they chuck in some like Dayseeker, like synthwavey, sexy parts. All of it ties really well together. Very solid album. If you haven't heard it, I don't know that there's too many people that would be this deep into my album of the year that wouldn't just love this album immediately. Go check it out. I feel like the next two are going to upset some people, but they're great albums that I love. They're very high on my album of the year, but I think a lot of people would want these higher. Polaris Fatalism is a solid modern metalcore album. They're one of the best bands to ever come out of Australia. I love this band. I loved this album. And I don't want people to think that because it's not in the top 10, I don't think it's amazing. It is an amazing album. There are just some albums this year that really connected with me. This one, more just a very impressive album that I enjoyed listening to and I really respect. But just didn't, there's too many good albums this year, all right? And going into the next one, just keep all of that in mind. All right, now instead of being angry, wonder what's ahead of it, all right? Heavener by Animate. So many people have this as their album of the year. It is an amazing album. It comes in just outside of my top 10 at number 11. Consistent tone throughout, but in so many parts I found there was just too much of the wall of noise, and I like music that has more defined contrast. It's a me thing. I'm the one, like, hi, I'm the problem. It's me. It's a great album. I'm sorry that it's not my favorite album of the year, but it is my 11th favorite album of the year. Animate, Heavener. Mwah, beautiful. Currents, The Death We Seek. This is just the peak of modern metalcore. In some ways, it completely defines that genre, perfects it. It's fantastic. If you're thinking then how is that not your number one? Because that's not my favorite genre, but this is possibly the best album of that genre. Very sick. Again, a lot of people would probably want this one higher, but the other albums just connected with me more this year, but I loved it. Currents, The Death We Seek. Also, funny story, I thought when I was listening to this, I actually thought I was listening to the Counterparts album. They both have like black and red AI generated covers, and I'd heard some singles from the Counterparts album, and it wasn't until months after listening to this that I realized that Counterparts and Currents are two different bands. I'm an idiot. All right, into the top 10, single digits, number 9, Resolve, their new album, Human. Incredible band, incredible vocals. They really pushed the production on this one. They're another band that it's hard to place them because they're kind of post-hardcore, but they're kind of modern metal. They're really heavy, but then they're really rocky, pretty experimental, some fun parts on this, some really deep and meaningful parts on this. I really connect with this vocalist and with the bass player in this band. I think the bass player also does a lot of their production, and the tone that he gets out of his bass really scratches my brain, and that's what I follow probably the most while I'm listening to these songs, and I just love the movement of the bass throughout the songs, throughout the album, matched with the vocals and the overall production. It's incredible, and it has Older Days on it, which is one of my favorite songs of the year. Number 8, Caskets Reflections. Solid post-hardcore. I love this band. I got to see them live and hang out with them this year and finally meet them. They are amazing. They're so good live. I feel that this album is more than the sum of its parts. When you listen through the whole thing as a collection of songs, I think it stands out more than any of the one songs on the album. But then in saying that, almost every song has a giant hook that really speaks to me and moves me emotionally. I love Matt's voice and vocals and lyrics and the way that he puts his vocals to the song. I was super surprised to find out that these guys write their music first and then Matt fits the vocal lines over it, because some of these songs really feel like they come from the lyrics. Then vocals are written around the lyrics and the songs written around those, the way that the songs move and fit, emotionally connect the meaning to the music. They're just masters at it, and it's another really solid album. So that's at number 8. Number 7, Silent Planet, Superbloom. These guys are from another planet. They're hyper active. Some of the sounds that they make destroys my brain. The mixing, the production is wild. The vocalist is so charismatic and crazy. It's so heavy, it's so jarring, but then there are just moments of absolute peace in the album, tranquility. It's a great journey. It's a great album. It's the most I've loved Silent Planet. I've always liked them, but this album I really, really loved. I think they did a great job. At number 6, our Mirage with their album Eclipse. This band, very modern post-hardcore, really, really good at crafting stories throughout their songs. At this point, all of these albums coming up, the production is amazing. I'm big on production, so all these top 10 albums have fantastic production. In particular, with our Mirage and with this album, I think Timo's voice and lyrics really connect with me. He has such a humbleness and honesty and openness to how he sings. It really sounds as though he means everything he says. There's no pretense. It's all very beautiful and open and true. And I love this album and the way that the music carries the meaning of the vocals and the vocal lines. So number 6, just outside of the top 5, Eclipse from our Mirage. And now we're moving into the top 5 albums of the year. At number 5, by far the biggest surprise of the year for me, the Word Alive Hard Reset. I can't believe how good it is and how much I love it. Word Alive have been around forever. They're huge in the scene. I've always liked them and known about them, but have never really connected with me. I've never really been a huge fan. This album is incredible. It is baddie core. It is up there with Bad Omens from last year. It's so driving and dynamic and intentional and cool, and I just loved it. It's good for when you're driving. It's good for in the gym. It's just got such a good vibe to it, and I'm a huge now Word Alive fan. This album has completely turned me. Coming in at number 5, Word Alive Hard Reset. Okay, it's about an hour later. My PC just crashed. The footage would have been really shaky, but I didn't want to re-record my thoughts and feelings that I'd said about those last bunch of albums because it was from the heart and I didn't want to lose that. So I thought I'd rather the footage be a little shaky for a little while, but it be the right words, then edit that. But anyway, it's so late now, but I've got to finish this. Otherwise it's going to be too disjointed. Down to album number 4. To the surprise of no one, Amity Affliction, Not Without My Ghosts. I've been a fan of Amity Affliction for far too long. I love this band. They have such a special place in my heart. I love this album. It is one of their best. They are still doing it. They're still getting it done. And in particular, I See Dead People with Louis Nux. Beautiful, epic, huge, incredible song. Such a powerful album. They're a powerhouse. They're the best. I love this band. Amity Affliction, Not Without My Ghosts at number 4. At number 3, we have Termina and Soul Elegy. This album is truly incredible. The musicianship, the ideas in the music, everything is pushed to the absolute extreme. So technical, chaotic, deep. It gets so heavy. Like everything they do, they go all the way. Nick's musical mind is just wild. And when he pushes something, he pushes it all the way. The heavy stuff is so heavy. The chaos is so chaotic. The choruses are so uplifting and beautiful and high. They soar above the rest of the song. And then you pair that with Andy Cizek, who is a freak of a vocalist. He can do anything and everything, and he does on this album. The vocals on these songs are so huge and beautiful and dark and evil and just massive, heavy. It's an incredible piece of music, and I can't believe how many hits are on the one album. When I was listening through it, finally, the entire album, I couldn't believe all of the songs that I loved and had been listening to all year that were all from the same album. It's one of my most listened to albums of the year. I'm a huge fan. I love what they do, how they go about it. It's a masterpiece. Number 3 of my album of the year, Termina Soul Elegy. All right, you can pretty much guess the last two. I think it always... Termina was number 2 for a little while, but then it had a pretty late change actually from this next album. So about a week ago, I was sitting on the couch with my son, who is 5. He loves metal. He loves Electric Callboy. When we get in the car, he wants to listen to my music. And I sat down with him and we watched through all of the music videos from this album. And while I was doing that, it just suddenly occurred to me how powerful and important this album is, and what this album is and will be to a whole generation of young people getting into metal, getting into rock. And that album is Beartooth, The Surface. This is a hard rock album, a modern metal album, but it is hopeful and positive and uplifting and beautiful. The message of the album of self-love, of being positive, of creating a positive world, of finding yourself, of being true to yourself. It is something above music. It is really important. And on top of that, I saw these guys live this year, and it's one of the best live bands I've ever seen. This year, I was lucky enough to see Beartooth, Electric Callboy, Caskets, and Sleep Token. It was a ridiculous year for me for seeing live music, but Beartooth's sound blew everything out of the water. It was so huge. Such a great rock show. Caleb Shomo is an incredible frontman. And this is a really important album, a really fantastic album, and an album that I really love. And that leads us to album number 1, my album of the year. Take Me Back to Eden by Sleep Token. This album is a lot of things. It's incredible. It is genre defining, genre creating, fluid, beautiful, absolute masterpiece. It is the final album of a trilogy, and they nailed that in a way that I could never have expected. It moved me in many ways emotionally. You get down to it, they get so heavy. It's got so many cool R&B kind of moments. There is not a song that I would skip. I love every part of it. If you want to go see my reaction to it, it is on Patreon. It's probably one of the most emotional reactions that I've ever done. It is just such a beautiful masterpiece. It really is. It really is a masterpiece of an album. And it is in my top 5 albums of all time. It's not just album of the year for me this year. It is up there for me with Meteora from Linkin Park, with LD50 from Mudvayne. It is one of my favorite albums of all time. I love it. I love how they released it. I love the track listing. Seeing it live was unbelievable. The whole Sleep Token thing is so cool. With Vessel, 2, 3, 4, everything they're doing, they are. It's history in the making that we are getting to see the rise of Sleep Token. Truly a band for the ages. One of the most important bands in metal in a long time. Really, a whole new genre within itself. Peak of modern metal. I could go on and on and on and on. I just love this album, love this band. I guess my favorite songs, the ones that Do You Wish That You Love Me was my number 1 played song of the year. Euclid as well, super high up there. Ascensionism, the way that Ascensionism moves and changes is one of the best songs ever. I could just go through and name every song at this point. Chokehold, incredible. Aqua Regia, so sick. Granite, I love the ending of Granite. The ending of Granite live, the way that 3 was moving to it, my God. Like, The Summoning is like the song of the album, I guess, in a lot of ways, because it's what blew up and blew them up this year. An amazing album. I'm so lucky to have it. It's the kind of album that I have thrashed ridiculously, and I still get excited to hear it every single time. And it surprises me throughout. It's incredible. It's incredible. I love it. It is one of my favorite albums of all time. Sleep Token, Take Me Back to Eden. Congratulations, you are my album of the year. And that's my top 30 albums. What a crazy year it has been for music, for albums, for metal for me. So I started my Patreon album reactions this year. This year, Patreon got that new feature where they could have videos native on the site. And then that allowed me to get through all of the copyright issues that I've been having that stopped me from putting albums onto YouTube, and started doing them on Patreon. And it's been incredible. To have a top 30. Last year, I had to scrape together to get it to make a top 5. Techno was my album of the year last year, and literally my top 5 albums were the only albums that I had listened to last year. Whereas this year, I had to cut it down to the 30. So there's albums like Silosis, Dying Wish, Parkway. There's all these other albums here that didn't make it to the top 30. Massive year for music. And this Sleep Token is incredible. So if you do want to head on over and watch all of the reactions, I have full album reactions for all of these on the list over on my Patreon. You can just pay $5 once for 1 month and listen to them. Go watch all the ones you want to watch. But yeah, thank you all for all of your support this year. It's been a really incredible year for me. And it's just been such a huge year in music and in the heavy music that we love. So thank you. Hope you have a great Christmas and New Year's. And I'll see you on the next one. Thank you all again. See ya.